Hey everybody, and welcome back to another deep dive session with us.
Yeah, welcome back.
You know how this works, right? We're going to take a deep dive into your class notes.
From April 10th.
That's right, April 10th, 2025. So if you have your notes handy, go ahead and grab those.
And we're going to break it all down together.
Because sometimes it's helpful to go back and look at things from a different angle.
Absolutely. And, maybe hear it explained in a different way.
Maybe pick up on something you missed the first time around, right?
For sure. And that's what we're here for.
So we're going to cover all the bases: vocab, pronunciation, grammar, writing, and speaking.
Just like we did in the original class.
So let's dive right in, shall we? Where do you want to start?
Let's start with vocabulary.
Okay, cool.
Let's look at some of the words from the current class section.
All right, so we had to pray.
Yeah. To pray, which means to talk to God or a higher power.
Right, like to ask for something or to thank them for something.
Exactly. And it can also be used informally to express a strong desire for something. Like, I'm praying that I get this job.
That's a good example, yeah.
Okay, and then we have to open...
Pretty forward, right?
Yeah, just to open something, a door, a window, a book, whatever.
Exactly.
Then there's to ride a bike.
Do you remember learning to ride a bike?
Oh, yeah. It took me forever.
Me too. I was so scared of falling.
But once you get it, it's so much fun.
It is. It's a great way to get exercise and enjoy the outdoors.
Absolutely. Okay, so then we had to die, which is a bit of a heavier topic.
Yeah, it is, but it's important to know how to talk about it.
Especially if you're learning a new language.
Right, and to die is a very common verb, so you're likely to come across it at some point.
Okay, after to die, we had door.
Another simple one, just like to open.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows what a door is.
But it's important to know the word in English.
Right, and then there was love handle, which is kind of a funny one.
Yeah, it is. It's a slang term for the extra fat around your waist.
It's like a little roll of love.
Exactly, and it's usually used in a humorous way.
Like, oh, I've got to get rid of these love handles.
Yeah.
And then we had sometimes and something.
These are both really common words that can be a little tricky to use.
Yeah, because they're kind of vague.
Right. Sometimes means occasionally or not all the time.
Like, I sometimes go to the gym.
Exactly, and something means a thing that is not specified.
Like, I need to buy something for dinner.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Okay, and then there's because, which is a conjunction that we use to explain why something happens.
It's a really important word to know because it helps us to connect ideas.
Right, like, I'm tired because I didn't sleep well last night.
Exactly.
Then we have church, which is a place where Christians go to worship.
And it can also be used more generally to refer to any religious building.
Like a mosque or a synagogue.
That's right.
Okay, and then lastly, we have behind and after.
These are both prepositions that we use to describe the position of something in space or time.
So behind means at the back of something.
Like the cat is behind the sofa.
And after means later than some.
Like, I'll call you after work.
Okay, so those are all the words from the current class section.
Now let's take a look at the past class section, where you have some words underlined with their meanings.
So we have thankful and grateful.
Both of these words mean to be appreciative of something.
Right, so they're pretty much synonyms.
Yeah, they are.
Then we have poverty and lack of money,
Poverty is a more general term that refers to the state of being poor.
whereas lack of money is more specific and just means not having enough money.
Right.
After that, we have robbery and theft.
Both of these words refer to the act of stealing something,
But robbery usually involves violence or the threat of violence.
whereas theft is more general and can refer to any kind of stealing.
Okay, then we have martial arts and fighting sports,
Martial arts is a more traditional term that refers to fighting styles that originated in Asia.
like karate or taekwondo.
Right. And fighting sports is a more modern term that can refer to any kind of sport that involves fighting.
Like boxing or mixed martial arts. And lastly, we have restrooms and toilets.
Both of these words refer to the same thing, but restrooms is a more polite term.
It's like the difference between saying bathroom and toilet.
Right.
Okay, so those are all the words from the past class section.
And then we have the fill-in-the-blank section with the words jaywalking, regardless, upside, puberty, and in shock.
Can you remind me what jaywalking means?
Sure. Jaywalking is when you cross the street illegally.
Like when you don't use the crosswalk.
Exactly.
And regardless means despite something.
Like, I'm going to go for a run regardless of the weather.
And upside is the positive aspect of something.
Like, the upside of moving to a new city is that you get to meet new people.
Then there's puberty, which is the time when your body starts to change and you become an adult.
And in shock means to be very surprised or upset by something.
Like, I was in shock when I heard the news.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Okay, so that covers all the vocabulary from this class.
Now let's move on to pronunciation.
All right, so in the different sounds section of the past class, we had the pairs at and ate.
Yeah, can you hear the difference in how those two words are pronounced?
Yeah, at has a short A sound like in cat.
And ate has a long A sound like in hate.
Exactly.
We also looked at the sounds in cook and book compared to more and core.
In cook and book, the oo sound is like the U in put.
And in more and core, the or sound is like the or in for. And then in the similar sound section of the past class, we had some interesting groups of words.
Like swim ma'am and Instagram.
All of those words end with the same M sound,
Yeah, and then there's nature, culture, and future.
which all have the same extra ending.
And ride and raid, which are spelled similarly but pronounced differently.
Ride. Bride has a long I sound like in bike.
And raid has a long A sound like in cake.
We also had much church and watch, which all end with the same shat sound.
And wash and fish, which both have the sh sound. And then there's pat, at, and fat, which all have the same short A sound.
And ate and fate, which both have the same long A sound.
And lastly, authority, awful, and almond, which all start with the same A sound.
That's right.
And then for the general sounds from the past class, we had a long list of words like old, daughter, mother, brother, biology, nutritionist, started to go, hair, nails, lilt, tired, usually, excellent children, barbecue, always, pie, and student.
It's important to practice pronouncing all of those words correctly.
Yeah, and to pay attention to the different sounds that each letter can make.
Absolutely.
Okay, and now for the sounds from the current class, we started with the general sounds, one and Y.
One is pronounced with a W sound at the beginning.
And Y is pronounced with a long I sound.
Right. And then in the similar sound section, we had well and tell.
Both of those words end with the same L sound.
Exactly.
And then for the different sounds, we had I and age.
I has a long I sound.
And age has a long A sound.
Right. And then youth and young.
Youth has a long U sound.
And young has a short U sound.
Then there's sit and seat.
Sit has a short I sound.
And seat has a long E sound.
And lastly, church and teacher.
Church has the C sound.
And teacher has the long E sound.
Okay, great. So that covers all the pronunciation from this class.
Now let's move on to grammar.
Perfect.
So the grammar point that we reviewed in this class was the transformation of the first person singular to the third person singular.
Right. So like changing I to he or she.
Exactly.
And when we do that, we usually have to make some changes to the verb.
Right. Like for most verbs, we add an S to the end.
Like I walk becomes he walks.
That's right.
But there are some irregular verbs like to have and to be.
Yeah. I have becomes he has.
And I am becomes he is.
Right.
So we did some exercises with sentences from Deborah and Andreas to practice this grammar point.
Do you want to go through those sentences together?
Sure, let's start with Deborah's sentences.
Okay, so her first sentence was, my name is Deborah.
How would we change that to the third person singular?
It would be, her name is Deborah.
Right. Okay, next sentence. I am 35 years old.
That would be good. She is 35 years old.
Okay, I work as a nutritionist at a school.
She works as a nutritionist at a school.
Good. I started this job 10 years ago.
She started this job 10 years ago.
All right. I'm short and I have long black and brown hair.
She is short and she has long black and brown hair.
I keep my nails short because
She keeps her nails short because
I don't like long nails.
she doesn't like long nails.
I feel a little tired, but I usually have energy.
She feels a little tired, but she usually has energy.
I swim and ride my bike.
She swims and rides her bike.
I go to church on Sundays.
She goes to church on Sundays.
I also love nature.
She also loves nature.
And lastly, I like to travel and learn about new cultures.
She likes to travel and learn about new cultures.
Okay, great. Now let's do Andreas's sentences.
All right, his first sentence was, my name is Andrea.
That would be, her name is Andrea.
Right. I am a biology teacher.
He is a biology teacher.
I live in an apartment with my 2 daughters and my husband.
She lives in an apartment with her 2 daughters and her husband. Okay, we enjoy spending time together as a family.
This one's a little different because we refers to Andrea and her family.
So it would be, they enjoy spending time together as a family.
That's right.
And his last sentence was, I have 1 brother and 1 sister. We all grew up in the same house.
So the first part would be, she has 1 brother and 1 sister.
And the second part would be, they all grew up in the same house.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So that was a good review of the third person singular.
Yeah, it's an important grammar point to master.
Absolutely.
Now let's move on to writing.
Okay, so In the writing exercise 1, improve your personal biography section, we had some questions for Deborah, Andrea, and Flavia to help them add more detail to their biographies.
Right, so for Deborah, we asked her things like what she ate for breakfast today, if she has any children or pets, what time she wakes up on weekdays, if she went to the beach on her last vacation, and if she likes to watch movies or TV shows at night.
And for Andrea, we asked her what subjects she liked at school, if she drinks coffee in the morning, if she traveled last weekend, what kind of music she listens to, and if she has a favorite restaurant in her city.
And for Flavia, we asked her if she has any siblings, what she did last Sunday, if she reads books or magazines in English, what she eats for lunch during the week, and if she went to the park last month.
So all of those questions were designed to help them think about different aspects of their lives and to come up with more interesting details to include in their biographies.
Right, because the more details you include, the more interesting your writing will be.
Exactly. And then in writing exercise 2 and writing exercise 3, we focused on the process of writing, revising, and editing.
So in writing exercise 2, you wrote a first draft of your biography, and then you revised it and edited it to make it better.
And in writing exercise 3, you did the same thing, but with a description of a family member.
So it was all about practicing the writing process.
Right.
And now let's move on to the last section, speaking.
Yeah. Okay, so in the speaking training section, we read a text aloud to practice our listening comprehension and pronunciation.
Yeah, do you want to read that text again now?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Last Sunday, Andrea and Deborah sat on a red tablecloth and waited for Flavia at the park. They had packed fresh juice fruits and a big sandwich. It was a surprise for one of their best friends. They knew she felt sad that week, but they didn't know why. When Flavia arrived, she smiled with her whole face from her eye to her heart. The day was sunny, the food was simple, but the moment felt well. The kids ran around while the moms sat in a circle and talked about their youth, their jobs, and soccer games. Deborah told a joke that made Andrea laugh so loud a man almost lost a seat on the bench beside them. Flavia said she missed their talks. She worked hard all week, helped her teacher with school events, and even cleaned the church on Saturday. She didn't stop to rest. Andrea looked at her and said, "That's why we're here, to help you breathe." Deborah nodded and added, "Now just sit, eat, and smile." They talked about being young moms and how time runs fast. Flavia opened her bag and showed a drawing her son made. It had 3 women holding hands under a tree. She said, "He drew us." The 3 friends laughed again. It wasn't just a picnic. It was love time and a good story to tell again next Sunday.
That was great.
Thanks.
So that's it for our deep dive into your class notes from April 10th.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We sure did. We reviewed vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, writing, and speaking.
And we did some exercises to practice all of those skills.
So make sure you do your homework and review everything we talked about today.
And don't forget to check out the bibliographic references on possessive adjectives if you want to learn more about that grammar point.
And just a heads up that in our next class, we're going to be continuing our exploration of the third-person singular.
So stay tuned for that.
And that's it for today.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
It's not only about the language.
It's all about communication.
See you next time.